time to look at the stat leaders through 3 quarters of the 2025 season. Where does the time go? Welcome in again, NFL fans, to Finn's Temporal Focus. Today we're going to be going over the stat leaders through 3 quarters of the 2025 season. Man, it has went very quick. Also want to officially say Happy Thanksgiving. Hope you guys are going to be eating soon and watching some football and having a good time. I'm probably going to try to check out the Packers Lions game. That's the one that's the most interesting to me, so I'll probably try to catch some of that game. But guys, like I said, happy Thanksgiving. Hope you guys get full of turkey and dressing and all those nice things. And now we're going to jump into this thing. Also, hey, time to pay attention. Hopefully some of your favorite players will make the list. When I say make the list, it's not really, I'm not making the list. They're the ones that made the list. Excuse me. So we are going to start, of course, with everyone's favorite subject, the quarterback. And I only do 3 categories that I really pay attention to for quarterbacks. That is passing yardage, passing touchdowns, and completion percentage. Now, you can look at a lot of other stats for the quarterback, obviously, and you have interceptions, which I kind of go over with the touchdowns to see how people are doing. Don't really talk about the ones to Tua Tagovailoa who are throwing a lot of interceptions, but we're going to get straight into this. Sorry, I dilly-dallied too much already in this video. We start with Drake May, number 1 in yardage, 3,130 yards. He was 5th in the second quarter of the season. And Patrick Mahomes, who was 3rd on this list in the second quarter of the season, has 2,977. Dak Prescott, who was 4th, is now 3rd with 2,941 yards. Daniel Jones, 2,840. He was number 1 on this list the last quarter of the season. Matthew Stafford is number 5, 2,830. He was actually 6th last time. And Sam Darnold, who did not make the yardage list, 2,785 yards. Touchdowns. This one's a big one. Matthew Stafford, man, is he having a season. He's number 1 on this list, 30 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He is having a season, and I think honorable mention for MVP. I think it's just him and Jonathan Taylor as far as my thinking process at this point. I will give a nod to Drake May because, let's face it, he's number 1 in yards, and we're going to get to it, but he's number 1 in completion percentage. So maybe Drake May gets some mention in MVP voting. But Dak Prescott is 2nd on this list with 23. Well, actually, Prescott and Jared Goff are tied with 23 touchdowns, so they would be in 2nd. Dak Prescott has thrown 7 interceptions, Jared Goff 5 interceptions, and then Drake May, 21 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, which is good enough for 4th. And then you have 3 quarterbacks tied with 19 touchdowns apiece. And then you have completion percentage. Drake May, 71%. Josh Allen, number 2. Drake May was number 1 last quarter as well. Josh Allen, number 2, 69.7%. He was 5th on this list last quarter. Sam Darnold, who was 6th last quarter, now third with 69.5. Dak Prescott, who was not there the last quarter, 69.3. He comes in at 4. Jared Goff has dropped. He was in second place in the completion percentage, and he has dropped to 5th, 69.3. Well, technically, I guess he's tied with Dak Prescott for 4th. So, sorry. But he was in second place. And you will see Mac Jones. He is on this list at 3rd place, but Brock Purdy has now took over that quarterback spot again. Although Jones has thrown more than 200 attempts this season. So definitely needs recognition. That a 69.6% completion rate. And of course you have Huntley also, who's number 1, but he played like 2 games and just not enough attempts for I'm not going to do that. But I did want to at least give Mac Jones some props because he has thrown for over 200 attempts and 69.6. But I don't consider him in that third place spot because these other guys have played a full season, which means a lot more attempts and a lot more opportunities. So the less you play and you have a couple of good games, obviously you're going to have a decent completion percentage. But that is your quarterbacks. And when you really look at this, I think there's 2 that you have to pay attention to, and that is Drake May and Matthew Stafford. Like I said, May, number 1 in yardage, number 1 in completion percentage. Now, you do have to remember, as far as the yardage, May has not had a bye yet. So he does hold a game on some of these guys. But Matthew Stafford, 5th in yardage, number 1 by landslide in touchdowns, and of course only 2 interceptions. That is insane. And he's not on the list for completion percentage. So, if you want to knock him there, I guess you can. It's hard to overlook that 30 touchdowns. I mean, that is a big number, 30 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. That's amazing to me. But you got to give Drake May, especially this being his 2nd year, he has really came on. Obviously, New England has came on. They're 10-2 on the season. You can check out my standings list. And right now, the playoffs are today. They are the number 1 seed in the AFC. We're going to move on to rushing. Jonathan Taylor. Unbelievable. I'm just going to say it. Jonathan Taylor leads this whole list with 1,197 yards, and he also has 15 touchdowns. He's number 1 on both of these. I usually write down the yards per carry, and I did not do it this time. I am so sorry. We'll get back into that the next quarter. But yeah, I usually write down yards per carry, but I didn't do it. So you have Jonathan Taylor, 1,197. James Cook, who was number 2 last quarter, he's number 2 this quarter with 1,084. Jahmyr Gibbs, 951 yards, was not on this list last quarter. And Devon Achane, our very own Devon Achane, makes the list with 900 yards. He was not there the last quarter. And then Javonte Williams from Dallas, 896 yards. He was in 4th. He drops to 5th. And then you have Derrick Henry and Dowdle from Carolina. They are tied with 871 yards. Dowdle was actually 3rd on this list last quarter, and Henry was 6th, and technically is remaining at 6th for that. And then touchdowns, like I said, Jonathan Taylor, 15. He was number 1. He's been number 1 all year. Josh Jacobs, who is still number 2 with 11 touchdowns. He was number 2 last quarter. Josh Allen was 4th on this list last quarter. He now has 10. So our only quarterback on this list, although Jalen Hurts, I think he is tied. He's one of the 3 that's tied for 8 touchdowns, but we'll get to that. I think it'll show up here as we go. Josh Allen, 10. Jahmyr Gibbs, 10 as well, so also tied in that 3rd place spot. Derrick Henry is 5th with 9 touchdowns. He was 6th last quarter, and then, like I said, you have 3 tied with 8 touchdowns. And to me, Jonathan Taylor is just, again, not only Offensive Player of the Year, I think he very much in the MVP running in my eyes. So congratulations to Colts fans, because which Jonathan Taylor's been a great player for a while, but man, he is yakking it up this season. We go into receivers. Number 1 is Christian McCaffrey, not a receiver, but yeah, he's a receiver. I think he's the only running back on any of the lists of receivers. Although our very own Devon Achane, I don't think he's that far behind as far as catches as well. Catches, yards, and touchdowns. Had a good year receiving. We'll just leave it at that. But McCaffrey, 81 receptions. He was number 2 on this list last quarter. Trey McBride, tight end out of Arizona, he has 80. Also, Puka Nacua has 80. So they're tied for 2nd. Nacua was actually 3rd last quarter, and he's now tied for 2nd. Then Jackson Smith Jingba, I hope I'm saying that right. He also has 80. So those 3 are tied for technically 2nd on this list. Then you have Jamar Chase, who was number 1 last quarter. He drops to 79. One catch off of 2nd place. And then Amon St. Brown, Detroit Lions, 75 catches. He was in 4th last quarter. And it's crazy when you look at McCaffrey, McBride, Nacua, Smith, Jingba, Chase. Literally 3 catches separates those 5 players. So crazy, crazy, crazy. Big race for the reception leader. We also look at yardage, which Smith Jingba is absolutely running away with this. 1,313 yards in Seattle. George Pickens is number 2. He was actually 3rd in the last quarter stats. He has 1,054. Puka Nacua, 947 yards. He was 4th on this list last quarter. Amon St. Brown, Detroit Lions, 884 yards. Jamar Chase, 861. He was actually 2nd on this list last quarter. And then you have Atlanta's Drake London, 810 yards, and he was not on this list in the last quarter. And then you have touchdowns. We're only going to talk about 3. The rest are up here. You can check and see if one of your players is on there. But we're going to talk about those 3, which is Devontae Adams with 12 touchdowns on the season. He was number 1 last quarter. You have Amon St. Brown, 9. He was in 2nd last time. He's 2nd now. And then you have George Pickens with 8, who was not on this list. Or if he was on one of those that was tied at the bottom that I went over. And then you have 6 tied with 7 touchdowns on the season. So some of them may break away as we go. When you look at the receivers, man, Jamar Chase is one of them that has been in the mix all year, but man, Jackson Smith Jingba is absolutely having a season. really good season, 1,313 yards. Ridiculous at this point. Monte Adams also having a nice season, especially around the red zone. But I think your two receivers, for my taste, is Jackson Smith Jingba and Amon St. Brown from the Detroit Lions. I think they are the two that, because when you look at it, St. Brown is fourth in yards, he is sixth in receptions, and then he's number 2 in touchdowns. So I'm going to give him the nod. I think it is Njigba and St. Brown is the top 2 wide receivers right now, in my mind. We move on to the defense. Now, on defense, we're going to get into, if you saw my video from yesterday, the standings, talked about the biggest surprise was the Chicago Bears. We're fixing to get into why the Chicago Bears are leading the NFC North right now. But we're going to start with tackles where, hey, my boy, Jordan Brooks, has led this list all season, and he has 125 tackles on the season. Now, a lot of people feel like that's inflated because Miami's defense does stay on the field a long time, so he has more opportunity to make tackles. But against the Washington Commanders, of course, they were on a bye this past weekend, but against the Washington Commanders the week before in Spain, 10 tackles and 10 assists this man had against the Commanders. Still having a pretty good season regardless of how long they've been on the field. You still have to make the tackle. 125 is insane, especially when you consider the second place person on this list, Cedric Gray from the Tennessee Titans, 109. That's a little bit of space between that 1 and 2. But Gray was number 2 last quarter as well. And then you have Campbell, Detroit Lions, 108. He was not on this list last quarter. You had Bobby Wagner, who was 3rd on this list, now 4th, 107 tackles. You have the New York Giants, Bobby Okereke. I hope I'm saying that right. Okereke, 103, and Devin White, 103. From the Raiders, they're tied for 5th place spot. Okereke was 5th last quarter, and Devin White was 6th last quarter. So we move on to sacks, where Myles Garrett crushing it with 18 sacks. He was number 2 on this list last quarter. He has taken over by 5 sacks over who was number 1 on this list last quarter, Brian Burns. He has 13. He is now 2nd in the league in sacks. You have Daniel Hunter, who was not on this team, not on this list, but thanks to a meeting with Josh Allen, he is now the defensive end for the Houston Texans, Daniel Hunter, and right behind him is the other defensive end for the Houston Texans, Will Anderson Jr. with 10.5 sacks. So Hunter 11, Anderson 10.5. They destroyed the Bills last week. I want to say Josh Allen was sacked 9 times in that game. Absolutely ridiculous. So both of those boys are, boom, on this list. And then you have defensive end Green Bay Packers, Micah Parsons, 10 sacks on the season. He was not on this list last quarter. And then linebacker Nick Benito, the Denver Broncos, he was 4th on this list last quarter. 9.5 sacks is what he has now, and he comes in 6th on this list. Now we go to interceptions. This one, kind of like Jordan Brooks in tackles, has been owned by Kevin Byard. He has been number 1 since day since week 1, pretty much. But he has 5 interceptions. There's actually 3 players with 5 interceptions. Kevin Baird, as we've said, J.C. Horn, the cornerback for the Carolina Panthers, who was not on this list last quarter, and then Nahshon Wright, that's right, the cornerback for Chicago Bears, who also has one of his going for a touchdown, is now tied as well. So you have 2 Bears with 10 interceptions leads this list of 5 interceptions on the first 3 quarters. Then, just for kicks and giggles, Tremaine Edmonds is tied for 4th place with 4 interceptions. I guess technically he'd be tied for 2nd place. I don't know how you want to look at that. Since you got 3 in front, that would be 4 would be next. But if you go by the 5 to 4, 2nd, however you want to do it, I'm going to say 4th place. He was 2nd last quarter with those 4, and we talked about that. And it is incredible that the Chicago Bears have 3 players with 14 interceptions. Just 3 with 14 interceptions. I don't know how many the Bears have for the season, but we do know 3, 14. You also have Devin Lloyd, the linebacker for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was tied with Kevin Baird in last quarter's stats. And then you have safety, Houston Texans, Kalen Bullock, 4 interceptions as well. He was not on this list last quarter. So that wraps up our stats list. And I guess you could get into, like, I made the comments for the receivers, running back, quarterbacks. You look at this, I mean, I guess we could talk defensive player of the year. But when you look at it, it's kind of hard doing it off the stats that I have down here, because you could say, well, Myles Garrett has 18 sacks. Nick Bonito has 9.5 sacks, but I don't know where Nick Bonito is on tackles, and I'm sure he has more tackles than Myles Garrett. And so many things to look at and who you think might be Defensive Player of the Year. Kevin Baird has been on this list since week 1, week 2, whenever he started getting interceptions. So you could look at maybe Kevin Baird. Nahshon Wright just had, like, he destroyed Minnesota Vikings, done a really good job. So there's a lot of things to look at. I think the NFL, of course, the other thing they look at, you got Myles Garrett, 18 sacks, leads the league. And, you know, he's not going to get a lot of looks just because the Cleveland Browns are not doing well this year. And I really don't like that. I don't think that has anything to do with what a player does on the season. You can have a player put up really good stats, and just because this other player, you know, if they're putting up similar stats or maybe a little under what that player is, because their team is playing well, then they end up getting that Defensive Player of the Year or MVP or Offensive Player of the Year, whatever award you want to assign. And I've never thought that should be, because that's an individual. That is not. It's a team sport, but that is an individual award. I still maintain that Barry Sanders should have gotten MVP more than he did when you look at his stats. There's been so many times that players have been overlooked. But for me, just looking at these particular stats, I'm going to go with Kevin Baird, because he has been on this list from week 1 to week 12, except for when they had to buy. Aha. But guys, that is it in a nutshell. Let me know if you think I'm wrong about the top guys that I've picked. Like I said, quarterback, I think it's Matthew Stafford. I will not argue the Drake May thing by any means, so I understand that one. Jonathan Taylor, that one I'll argue with you. I think Jonathan Taylor by far is the best running back going this season. And then for my taste, Smith Njigba and St. Brown is your top wide receivers. I will not argue against Puka Nacua. He did miss a couple of games, but I'm sure Jamar Chase, whoever you want to holler at me about, say, but I'm just going by stats. That's the only thing this is about. I will not argue against Nacua, not really argue against Jamar Chase. I understand if somebody wants to say he should be in those top two. But guys, leave a comment. Let me know what you're thinking. And I hope you enjoy the turkey. I hope you enjoy the games. I'm going to try and catch the Packers-Lions game, or at least some of it. And I will have my Saints-Dolphins pregame video out probably late Saturday, probably. I would like to have it out Friday, but I don't know if I'm going to make that work. So, but it will be out before the game, Saints and Dolphins. But guys, enjoy the food, enjoy the games, make good decisions, and fins up.